Okay.
Thank you.
Do you mind being in the cockpit
Yes.
for this one?
Yeah.
Okay. I just hold time cards up.
You can do that. That's all you.
Just for this session. Is this your? Do you want your? Is this
That is my stuff. Yeah. I wish we got over here.
I don't know what is wrong with me today. I'm sorry. I'm being really weird.
No, you're fine.
Did he download the
Both.
episodes?
Yep, both are ready, and I can switch them. Yeah, it's been a long week, so
Yeah.
we're all a little weird.
Yeah,
Although I
it's
got
like-
great sleep last night.
I slept better than I normally do after having a couple drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm usually just like laying around. But I slept
Yeah, I have.
long, but okay.
Yeah, no, I slept exactly, but I slept like hard. Like when I woke up, I was like, oh. Yeah. And I remember I had a crazy dream. A really crazy dream. I remember most of it. It was like at my parents' house, and we have like a TV room that looks out to the street, and we looked out the window and there were like a bunch of people in our yard, and there were like all these like shoeboxes everywhere, and the people were like going through the shoebox, like it was like everyone was like trying to see what was in the shoeboxes, and so we were like, oh no, we like closed all the windows and we're like locking all the doors, like, and then some other guy was in there. But it wasn't scary. It was just kind of like
Just things going on that kind of made sense, but
right. Yep.
I should log in via.
It would be helpful if you did
Okay.
to see if the audio is working.
Getting emails from Suzanne Marr telling me all the things that are going wrong, and I'm like, Suzanne, we're all keenly aware
Yeah.
of what's going on.
Yeah. Of course, yeah. She sent some chats during her presentation because she was supposed to be the one that she was supposed to be in.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
one. I was like, I don't know what to tell you.
I know, right? Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
So
and I get too that if you're on that end, you're just in this like portal.
right.
So all you see.
And that's her big thing.
Yeah.
She wanted to see the audience. And I was like, well, like, do I say there are only 30 online participants and 550 people in person? Or
I know, and
is that
exactly, like,
unnecessary?
Sorry, you're, like, maybe at the bottom of your priority.
Yeah. It's like, as long as you can hear what the people are supposed to hear, that's kind of the best we can do.
And you should tell people this and tell people that, or people just go with it. And they are.
Yep. Maddie, would you mind talking into the mic?
Hello, good morning, everyone. We're testing the mic.
I'm just joining right now. A little while.
Will you talk into the mic?
Oh, hello, testing.
That was
1, 2,
really
3,
that was
testing.
I think, I mean, I'm hearing it, it's just delayed.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lag sometimes with the internet.
Is it online?
This is me online listening to it, so yeah,
You think it'll be okay?
it's coming through. Yeah, I mean, that's okay. Anyway, it's starting to go, right?
Yeah. Nobody's responding in the chat.
Can folks on the chat hear me? Okay. And respond in the chat box. That would be amazing.
I think you're all set to get started regardless. Yeah, for your in-person audience. I'm gonna go close the doors.
All right. Good morning, folks. Thank you for joining me bright and early on the last day of this conference. I hope you guys all got your coffee, got your morning snacks, and are ready to talk about trash. My name is Madeline Gutieruiz. I am a project officer in Region 9's Tribal Clean Water section. And while I mainly focus on the Clean Water Act 319 and 106 programs, I do have a little passion for trash. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the Trash Free Waters program and how you can implement this program into existing clean water programs and the type of projects you can achieve with thinking about trash in mind. All right, so first of all, what is the Trash Free Waters program? This is an EPA program. It is a voluntary partnership program where our goal and our mission is to prevent trash from getting into waterways and to remove any trash that is already in waterways. So our goals are prevention, removal, and research. Common trash comes from consumer goods, and we're definitely concerned about trash in our environment because of the environmental impacts, the impacts on wildlife, and even some impacts on human health. So diving more into the trash concern, there's some direct negative impacts of trash in waterways, which can include declines in fishery populations, potential harm to wildlife, presence of toxic chemicals in our water sources, such as PFAS, risk of potential toxins for bioaccumulation happening in our food chain. So is microplastics getting into the waterway and are fish consuming these plastics and then that leading up into the food chain? And then potential risk to the community's health. Is it physically on the ground? Are people stepping on this trash when they're out in recreational areas, things like that? So this image, which is an image from NOAA, kind of just depicts how long it takes for trash to break down when it is kind of littered in the environment. So the larger circles in this image take a longer amount of time to break down, whereas the smaller images take a shorter amount of time. So for example, in the top area, we see a cardboard box that takes a couple of months to break down. You know, we're always buying our Amazon boxes. I'm sure we've got a lot of cardboard around. It takes a couple months to break down. On the other side of the spectrum is the larger circles. So we have things like fishing lines that can take up to 600 years to break down if they're left out in the environment. So how is trash getting into the waterways? So approximately 80% of aquatic trash comes from land-based sources. So typically trash travels, right? Typically, if you have litter on the ground, that litter can be carried by rain or wind into storm drains or directly into water bodies. If it lands in a storm drain, trash can then travel into streams, which can go into rivers, which can lead to the ocean, and ultimately can be potential health for folks and wildlife. So ultimately, I just kind of want to emphasize this, that the problem of trash in our waterways starts on land. And folks who have a clean water program in their environmental departments have the opportunity to kind of implement some trash-related projects to try to keep any of the litter out of waterways. So now I'm going to be diving into developing and what it takes to develop a trash-free waters project, including some funding sources. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to be focusing on Clean Water Act funding sources. All right, I know this slide is a wall of text, so bear with me. But if you're thinking about conducting a trash-free waters project, there's some questions we want to ask ourselves as we start developing the project. So, for example, do we want, or do we know a problem area? Do we already have an ideal location, ideal water body that we want to target? These can be recreational sites, such as fishing or swimming sites, cultural areas, or industrial locations, such as dumping sites, maybe somewhere near businesses. As long as these sites are near waterways, we can look into trash-free water implementation. Again, about location of the target area, what's going on around it, right? Is it upstream of the reservation? Is it near homes or public spaces? This could bring, if you have multiple areas that are dealing with trash, this question can answer what area might be more of a priority. If you have a location that's maybe right next to a playground, maybe that's somewhere where we want to target. Another question we want to think about is, what are the solid waste management actions that are currently taking place? Do we have constant trash pickup spots? Do we have any trash capture devices in our streams? Just thinking about what's already being done can help us decide, can we improve on these activities and include the water-related activities in what we're doing, or should we think of something else? And then some of my favorite parts, funding sources. So what funding sources do we currently have that can relate to these trash problems? And are there any funding sources that we can apply for in the future? And like always, I think when you're doing these kind of activities, we should consider the educational and outreach proportion of our project. It's always great to kind of inform the public and teach folks about why trash is harmful to the environment. Because it's not only an unsightly thing, right? So next I'm going to be breaking down the steps to implementing a trash-free waters project. So ultimately, I divided this into 6 steps. And I'm going to be breaking down these steps over the next few slides. So first, I want to think about assembling a project team. So once an impacted or threatened waterway is identified, a project team should be assembled. So this team can include any tribal government departments that might work with your department, any community members who might want to get involved in these trash activities, and or other stakeholders, and then also Region 9 staff. Your project officer would love to talk to you about any implementation projects, especially if we're using Clean Water Act funds, or maybe your GAP project officer as well. So next step, we're going to be diving into conducting a situational assessment. A situational assessment is the process of evaluating the sources and challenges of trash in an identified impacted waterway. The project team will need to evaluate the project location and document the extent, type, and sources of trash present to identify the project goal. Now, this is not a cleanup project, right? This is maybe your first step to see what's going on. What kind of trash are we seeing out there? Are we seeing large trash, like pieces of trash, like maybe dumped tires or small appliances? Or are we seeing smaller trash, just like your common litter, like food containers, plastic bags, things like that? So community engagement. Community engagement is pretty important because you want to let people know that, hey, you're putting money into this and you're hoping that they see what you guys are doing and possibly help out as well. So this step really brings together possible stakeholders to discuss local trash problems and to prioritize the solutions to address these problems. The forms of community engagement can take place in a lot of different forms. You can have virtual meetings about the event, you can have in-person meetings. Really, you just kind of want to let people know what the problem is and start brainstorming on ways to tackle it. All right, one of my favorite slides, funding opportunities. So the team should really consider which grants or funding opportunities the project qualifies for based on the situational assessment. So is there trash located inside of a waterway? Is it located near the waterway? Are we looking at adding more trash bins in a community, things like that? So here's some funding opportunities that I'm sure we've all heard of before. The General Assistance Program, or GAP, can help you develop plans to conduct a trash-free waters project. And then we have more implementation grants. So the Clean Water Act 106 grant, the Water Pollution Control grant, the Non-Point Source Pollution Program, or Clean Water Act 319 grant, and that's both base and competitive funding. And then every once in a while, headquarters has some trash-free waters funding opportunities, although this typically takes form in a contractor help. Another big wall of text, so I know it's probably hard to see, so don't worry about it, I'll break it down in the next couple slides, but this kind of just goes over a quick overview of the GAP program, the Clean Water Act 106 program, and the Clean Water Act 319 program. But what I really want to focus on are your Clean Water Act funding opportunities. So starting with the 106 program, hopefully some of you guys were able to make it to the 106, 319, and wetlands discussion that was earlier this week on Tuesday and heard a little more about this. I'm just going to do a quick cover of it. So the 106 program can be used towards hiring staff, performing water quality monitoring, quality assurance, associated data management, and identifying impaired waterways. So you can, if you are in the phase of just wanting to develop a project and not yet implement, the 106 funding might be a good opportunity. Moving into the 319 program. So the 319 program, there's two different types of funding. There's base funding and then there's competitive funding. The base funding is basically if you are a federally recognized tribe, you qualify for base funding, and the base funding is split into 4 different categories. So depending on how much land you have within your tribal nation, that qualifies you for the certain category. For example, the first category, you could get $45,000 for tribes with less than 2 square miles of total tribal land. If you're a tribe with equal to or greater than 2 square miles and less than 50 square miles of total tribal land, you get $50,000. If you're a tribe with equal to or greater than 50 square miles and less than 500 square miles of total tribal land, you can get $55,000. And if you're a tribe with more than 500 square miles of total tribal land, you can qualify for $70,000. One funding opportunity that I'd really like to emphasize is the non-point source competitive funding. So this funding goes through a competitive process, so you will have to submit an application and it goes through a review process. But you can have up to $125,000 to implement the on-the-ground water quality improvement projects. And thinking about that is we can, if you want to focus on a trash-free waters project, we can use these funds for that project. All right, next up is developing a work plan. So work plans can be pretty important because by creating a detailed work plan, the project team can easily show the grantees that your project is ready to be implemented. Meaning if your work plans, thorough, then you can qualify for that the 319 competitive funding a bit more. You can show your project officers that this is a great project to implement in your department. So some of the steps of developing a work plan, we want to list out all the necessary steps and tasks needed to start and complete the project. We need to create a project timeline. So how long do you estimate this project to go on for? Are we going to have to keep doing it year after year, right? If you're doing a cleanup project, are you going to want to come back the following year? And then last up is you want to delegate roles and responsibilities for each project task. There are many methods of capturing litter before it reaches the environment, and additional trash capture tools and technologies that are available. So again, the work plan can help map out the specifics of the project in a form of a document that can be referenced throughout the project's lifespan. So there are different types of trash-free waters projects. You can have a on-the-ground trash capture and cleanup project. You can have a source reduction project. You can have an outreach and education project, and you can do research. So that's just something to consider as you're developing this project. You might not implement on-the-ground cleanups right away. Maybe you need to do some research before you implement these kind of projects. So implementing the project and tracking the outcome. So continuous monitoring and evaluation of the water quality and trash accumulation is very helpful to implement a robust and effective trash and waters project. I'm going to dive a little bit more into this app, but this is an app developed by the EPA. It's the Marine Debris Tracker, and it is an app that you can have right on your smartphone. As you're collecting trash, you can track you can write down what kind of trash you're collecting. A tool that I'd also like to emphasize is the State Trash Assessment Protocol, or ETAP. The ETAP was developed by the EPA, the Trash-Free Water Program in the EPA. And it is a quantitative survey tool which provides a standard method for collecting and assessing litter data. And again, so the ETAP in its original form is an Excel document. And as you're collecting trash, you can basically mark how much trash you're collecting. It divides it into different categories. So if you're collecting a lot of maybe straws or plastic bags or food containers or cups, you can write down how much you're collecting. And in the long run, this can kind of help determine what type of trash you're finding out there, and it potentially could help you connect it with maybe some local problem areas. I think I used to work in Region 8 and out in South Dakota, and they used the ETAP to kind of collect data, and they found that there was a lot of McDonald's wrappers in a certain area, and they connected it with a McDonald's that was down the road. So that's kind of fun. All right. I wanted to dive into what trash water activities are already occurring in Region 9, because although the folks who have done these activities may have not called it a trash-free waters activity, they did use Clean Water Act 2019 base funding, competitive funding, gap funding, and they're really implementing trash-related activities that directly correlate to water bodies in their community. First, I'd like to shout out to Gila River Indian community who did a trash control structure. They installed a trash control structure to prevent trash and debris from entering wetlands. So this is considered a trash capture and cleanup activity. They used 319 base funds for this activity. Next, I would like to give a shout out to La Jolla, who does an annual Intertribal Earth Day event. So they focus on teaching the community about zero waste, and this is considered an education outreach project, and they use Clean Water Act 106 funds for this project. Next, I'd like to talk about York Tribe, who does an annual river cleanup. So the environmental staff will plan and implement an annual river cleanup. And the purpose of this cleanup is to bring together the community and clean up the local area. This is considered a trash cleanup, and they did use gap funding sources for this. And last, I would like to give a shout out to Moortown Rancheria, who focused on community hazard household waste pickup program. So although they used 319 base funding for this, but they were using it for training purposes. And they were using this money to basically attain qualifications and other certifications needed in order to handle and transport household hazardous materials. This is considered a source reduction project, and again, they used the non-point source base funds for this. All right, so how can we help you? So EPA is here to help you guys with developing these types of projects. We would love to be there for guidance, technical support, and hopefully help with funding opportunities. Again, I want you guys to think about education outreach opportunities. We can help you identify target areas in your community. We can try to find funding opportunities based on your project needs. And we can help develop trash-related projects that fit your community needs. Because in the end of the day, each project is pretty unique to each problem in your community. I don't know if you guys get a copy of this slide. It might be on the website for this conference. But here's a slide with just useful resources. So there's a link directly to the ETAP, the EPA Escape Trash Assessment Protocol. There's a link to the Marine Debris Tracker app, if you're interested in that. There's a link to all the grant information that I briefly covered. I know there was a lot. There's also a link to the Tribal Waste Management Program and the EPA Structured Waters brochure if you're interested in that, and some webinars if you're interested in just kind of hearing more about what's going on with trash-free waters. Another resource I would like to kind of give a little shout out to is Region 8's Trash-Free Water Tribal Program Handbook. So this handbook is split into a couple different sections. We go through environmental, social, and economic impacts of trash. If you're looking for language for community outreach, that's a great place to find it, or just want to know more about trash and how it can affect your community. It dives into implementing the Trash-Free Waters project. So the slides that I went through for implementation, this breaks it down even further and kind of gives you more of a description. There's also a section for funding opportunities. That includes a lot more funding opportunities than what I covered today. So that might be an interest of you if you're really looking for the funding opportunities to implement these types of projects. And then there's a couple of case studies in case you guys are interested to see what Region 8 tribes have done. Again, that is, if you end up going back to these slides, that is in the helpful resources slide. There's a link to it. So here's my contact information. If anyone has a water quality program and you're looking to maybe implement trash-free waters project or just want to talk about it, see what you can do, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk with you about it. You can also talk to your Clean Water Act project officer. I think they would be more than happy to kind of go over what projects can be covered by Clean Water Act 319 or contact information. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so if you want to talk to your project officers about the Clean Water Act 319 or 106 programs and how that funding can be used towards trash implementation, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. again, here's my contact information. Also, I'm going to give a shout out to the GAP program. I think they would also love to know what you guys are up to and potentially help with any clean water activities with GAP funds. So thank you. I would like to introduce Annette George, who is the Division of Natural Resource Manager for Duckwater Shoshone Tribe. Annette, would you like to come up? Annette initiated the Trash Free Waters Project, although she may have not called it a Trash Free Waters Project. But she's going to be going over kind of what they did and how they used their funds.
You want the different
Yeah,
one?
can we switch slides? Thank you, Maddie. So here's a picture. I didn't get it during the summertime where it's nice and green. But in Duckwater, we have one of the largest warm springs in Nevada, and it is around 94 degrees year round. So a lot of people like to go out there during all times of the year. Back before 2006, the Big Warm Springs was just a hole, just a spring in the ground. And cattle and cars and people would go right up to the edge of the water. So over the years, the spring was expanding because of all of the activity going on right alongside it. The cars would sometimes end up in the spring. A few times that happened accidentally, of course, and thankfully nobody was hurt in that process. But so in 2005, I think we got the Fish and Wildlife Grant Project to partner with them and to get the springs built back around the edges and to get the fencing around the Big Worm Spring. So it would have a boundary where cars would be able to park and not go up to the spring to keep the cows out. Also, we do flash graze once a year when the cows start coming home during the summertime for a brief period, just so they can clean up the vegetation. But we worked with BLM also to get some cedar posts to build up the inside of the spring. But we also have the Railroad Valley springfish. They are endangered. So we partnered with the BIA to have our invasive species crew, and we have 2 supervisors and 5 youth that go out and they trap the mollies and occasional catfish that we have throughout the lower springs, and they do the fish counts with Fish and Wildlife to try to get the Railroad Valley springfish delisted. So this is part of their crew. They're doing cleanup and they work on weekends since they're in high school. Eureka High School is about 47 miles away from Duckwater, and our high school kids go there from Monday through Thursday, and then Friday to Sunday. The BIA Invasive Species Program has them working, and they work in my office. And occasionally, whenever we have large events, the kids and I, we go up there and we do cleanup just periodically, just to try to keep the trash away from the water. And when it's nice, then they can go in the water and pick up the trash inside. So that gives them the opportunity to cool off in the summertime. This is from the inside of the pool, and that was just a picture. When nobody's in the water, you can just see right down to the ground and right down to the spring.
and people try to, you can see where the spring comes up. And it's a lot of pressure, so people try to swim down there, but they just get pushed back up. Several times throughout the year, we do outreach with not only our staff, the community, and our youth kids, even some of the daycare kids. We try to start them young, just so they can, practice picking up trash, even when they're out with their families. Remind them to pick up trash and just try to instill that in the youth, and so they can maybe remind their sisters or their mother, fathers, or family members to keep trash picked up from the water. The slide that showed all the items that are found, every item in that slide we've had, including a lot of socks. Socks are along a lot of things that we find, and there's been all kinds of articles of clothing, underwear, bras, and shirts. And when we didn't have a CXT toilet up there, and this was before the youth was working with me, but me and my staff would go up there and clean it up, and there was just hygiene products alongside the entrance of the pool. So we worked and we got the toilet up there to try to help with that situation, and it helps a lot. So it just takes a lot. We do an annual Earth Day cleanup, and we clean up around the big worm springs and the streams throughout Duckwater. And we also have an annual festival where we have a lot of people on our reservation. And before and after that event, we also go out and make sure we clean up the water and clean up all the areas that the people were at. The grants that I have that help with this is a 319 grant and the Section 106 to help provide the funding to keep our waterways clean and keep it protected. And I just thank EPA for all of the funds that we get with that to help this project. Duckwater is located, I should have said this at the beginning, but it's located in north central Nevada, and our location is right kind of in the middle of everything. It's 5 hours to Reno, 4.5 to Vegas, 5 hours to Salt Lake, 5 hours to Twin Falls. So that kind of gives you an idea that we are right smack in the middle of the sagebrush. We are no comparison to Las Vegas. Las Vegas is like its different town and area because we have snow, a lot of wind, a lot of cold, and a lot of heat. So it's a mixture, and if we have high winds, that trash could get carried all over. So that is why it's so important to keep up with just monitoring and keeping the waters clean. And the kids love to get in there, and they always like to dive down on the ground or the bottom of the spring. On the sides, it's lower where you can stand, so they get down there and they pick up the trash from there also. Okay, I think there's one more. So even during the winter times, we actually go out and make sure we clean up. Like I said, over the years, we've built the fence around it, and when we see people up there trying to cook or make fires out of whatever, so we did put up a place so that people could barbecue and a table just to help with the situation that's going on. So we provide a lot of things for the community to enjoy and also to respect it. Our Big Warm Springs was open to the public, and during COVID, the tribal council made the decision to close it up to the public and leave it open to the locals. And that really helped with monitoring the trash. A lot of times during the summer when it was open, the locals couldn't even get in to use it because there were so many people there. And on the weekends or during the night, during the summertime, we would have people coming from far away just to have a party there, and we would be left to clean up the trash. So we sent out a survey to the community asking if they wanted to open up the Big Warm Springs to the public again, and everybody agreed to keep it closed at this time. So just the locals are able to go there, and we find that there's a lot more respect with that. But we still do have to go up there and monitor it, make sure things are clean, not just at the Big Warm Springs, but throughout the reservation that has the streams and springs throughout different areas. But those are some ways that we've been keeping the waters clean, and I think that's very important. Thank you.
I think we have a couple more minutes. Yeah, we can open up to questions if anyone has any questions. We also have some pamphlets up here about the Clean Water Act 319 and 106 program if you just want a quick little sheet to kind of look over some information. Yeah, thank you guys. Any questions? If you don't want to ask in front of the crowd, you can always come up to me as well. I'm definitely open to chatting about it on the side. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.